Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon. I don't know where you are. Here in Istanbul, it's already 10 p.m., so it's good evening for us. So, how is everybody right now? How are you doing today? Como vocês estão? Tudo bem? We're going to wait a little for everybody to join and then we can start answering the questions. We got very good ones for today. Hi, Matt. Hi, Matt. Very good. So we got one today. We're going to answer your question first, Matt, about the pronouns this and that in Portuguese. We're going to start there. So let me just show already some of the things we're going to cover today if we have enough time for all of them. So first of all, we got the difference between this and that, like Matt asked last week, I believe, during this week on Instagram. The preposition aim, some question words, as well as the graphic marks, which we call acentos in Portuguese. I want to cover at least the first two, but I don't know if we're going to have enough time for all of them today. So let's just wait a little now for everybody to join and then we can begin already. Very well. So it's already 5 past. Já são 10:05 aqui. So let's begin. So, as I said, first we're going to be covering this and that. And that's quite simple in Portuguese, but not really. Well, I live in Turkey, in Istanbul, and in the Turkish language, we have something very similar to Portuguese. So, in English, as you see, we already got two of them, so which is this and that. But in Portuguese, we have three. So let me just show you what those are. Actually, there are three that actually become 9, but anyways, let's see. So I'm going to separate them into 3 categories. The first one is a question mark. The second one M for masculine, and the third one is F for feminine. So, okay, the first one is isto for the questions. And I put it under the question mark because isto is generally used for questions. So let me give you an example of the usage. We would say, for example, I have an object in my hand and I don't know what that is. So the question, what is this in Portuguese, would be o que é isto? So what is this? So isto is next to the question mark, is for questions. For the masculine versions, we use este. And for the feminine nouns, we use esta. Okay. So as I just said that isto is used for questions. And now este, as you see, we use it with masculine nouns, and feminine esta, we use it with feminine nouns, of course. So if I want to say, we saw last week the word copo. Copo is a cup and copo is masculine. So we would say o copo, right? So it's the cup. If I want to say this cup is a specific one, I would use este because it's next to me. So this cup would be in Portuguese este copo. So far so good. And let's say the feminine object. Let's say caneta. Why not? Caneta is a pen. So if I would like to say the pen, of course, as we saw last week, that would be a caneta. And if I want to say this pen, that would be, so this is the pen, it's in the wrong order, so the pen is a caneta. If I want to say this pen, I would say esta caneta. So isto for questions. If let's say I have an object, for example, I have my phone here in my hands right now, but let's say I don't know what this object is. So imagine I ask you, what is this? O que é isto? What is this? And the answer, for example, we answer, if you ask me with isto, I'm going to answer with isto again, or isso, which is the next one we're going to see. If I ask you this question, o que é isto? You will answer me, isso é celular. So a cell phone. Isso é celular. Or you can call that celular, or you could call that telefone, as you wish. Right? Okay, so isto, este, and esta. Now, let's move on to the next one. So we have isso, esse, and essa. And the difference between those ones, the difference between, for example, isto and isso, right here, it's better to explain with a drawing. So let's say right here, let's say we have two people. Let's draw with this. Okay, two people, and let's say this is it's a woman and a man. So this man, let's say he's Lucas, and this woman is Maria. So let's put a ball. Let's put a cup here next to Lucas. So he has a cup. So he would ask, o que é isto? Because the cup is next to him. So actually he's holding the cup. So for Lucas, he would ask, let's say, o que é isto? And that's too big. Let's just reduce the size a little. Okay, so Lucas would say, o que é isto? And I forgot the question mark. That's it, o que é isto? And Maria would say, she would reply with, isso é copo. Because now, let's say Maria is saying this, so it's next to her. Isso é copo, she would say, because now the cup is next to Lucas. It's not next to her. It's next to the second person in the conversation. So let's say we use the ones here on the top. So isto, este, and esta. We use it if the object is close to me, close to the first person, to the speaker, right? And we use the second row, isso, esse, and essa, if the object is next to the listener. So it's next to the second person in the conversation. Let's say if Maria wants to ask the same question, she would use isso. So let's say she's asking a question, so she would say o que é isso? Because now the cup is not next to her, but it's next to Lucas, rather. Let me change the color of this, just I don't want you guys to get confused. This is in red. And the answer, Lucas would say, isto é copo. So in the black dialogue, Lucas asks the question, he uses isto. On the red dialogue, Maria asks the question, so she uses isso, right? And the same with the answers. For the first dialogue, isso é copo because it's next to Lucas. And on the red conversation, he says isto é copo because it's actually next to him. Is it clear or confusing? And it's the same thing with the same. So este and esse, esta and essa. The same difference. Let's say Lucas is talking about the cup again, okay? So Lucas would say, this cup is empty. Let's write in purple here. He would say this cup is empty. So este copo está vazio. Again, because the cup is next to him, and now the object is identified. As you see, we use isto and isto for unidentified objects. If I have no idea what that is, that's isto or that's isto. But of course, they already know it's a cup, so este copo está vazio. Let's say if Maria says the same thing, she would say esse copo está vazio, because once more, the cup is not next to her, but next to Lucas. So that's what she would say, like this. And the same, of course, because copo is a masculine object. If I had a feminine object, that would be the same thing. Let's say, on the other hand, Lucas is holding a pen. So imagine this is a pen. I'm not very good at drawing, as you can see. Imagine it is a pen. Lucas would say the same thing. Let's put the pen on Maria's hand. Pen. Beautiful. Yep. So Maria would say, so you guys can tell me this time maybe. So let's say Maria would say, this pen is red. What would she use? Esta or essa? Can you guys tell me the whole sentence? Which one would she use? Yeah, so she would use esta caneta, because of course the pen is on her hand. So let's put the dialogue here on the other side. She would say, let's write this one in black again. Esta caneta é vermelha. Because she's saying that this pen is red and she's holding the pen. So that's what she would say. And if Lucas would say the same thing, she or he would use essa. Then he would say, let's write here as well, essa caneta é vermelha. Essa because it's next to Maria and not next to him, next to the second person. So that's basically the difference between, perfect, everybody's saying esta, esta, esta. Very good. That's the difference basically. So the ones on the first row, isto, esta, they are next to the speaker. And isto, esse, essa, they are next to the listener. It's a very subtle difference. But that being said, many Brazilians do not use isto, este, and esta. So many Brazilians, I would say everybody except for the teachers, for the Portuguese teachers, would use these guys. So isso, esse, and essa. They are actually everything we use. So we basically ignore these guys. Most Brazilians will just ignore them. And we just use the second row. So isso, esse, and essa. But that's the difference. That's what the grammar books explain, at least. So if I were you, if you're planning to learn Brazilian Portuguese, if you want to go to Brazil and you don't want to be very technical, let's say you don't need Portuguese like in an academic level, you just want to communicate with friends, you could learn only isso, esse, and essa. You can forget these guys, isto, este, esta. It's relatively expendable. In Brazil, However, in Portugal, they use both of them. They would use isto and they would use isso, but not in Brazil. And yes, we've been talking about these and we are talking about the other one. So if we could translate these six, so isto, este, esta, isso, esse, and essa, all of them you can translate into English as this, all of them. And these last ones, so aquilo, aquele, and aquela, you could translate as that. So, oops. So basically, that's it. Let's move this a little over here. Okay. And aquilo, aquele, aquela, these three on the last row. Of course, if the object is far from everybody. Let's say again, these characters, Lucas and Maria. So let's say now there is over here a ball. So let's say it's a football. Again, very good at drawing. It's not a turtle shell, it's a football, though it doesn't look like one. Let's say this is a beautiful football. Então, the word is bola. Let's say bola de futebol or futebol, but let's say just bola to simplify, to make our lives easier. Bola. So first of all, we need to say if bola is masculine or feminine. Why is it está vazio but é vermelho, Shani? I just saw your question. So this is a question about the verbs ser and estar. I have a video on that, but I can explain very quickly right now. It's because if you say that the glass, let me just say it. Let me just write it here. Open a little parenthesis. O copo está vazio. So the cup is empty. The verb here in this question, in case you don't know yet, we have two verbs to be in Portuguese. Yeah, Anna kind of answered already. She said it's because it's not a temporary state, and that's it. We have two verbs to be in Portuguese, the verb ser and the verb estar. So on the first sentence, let's say a caneta é vermelha, so the pen is red. If I say the first one is the verb estar, which is temporary. So if I say the cup is empty, of course, it's temporarily empty. But if I say that the pen is red, it's permanent. So a caneta é vermelha. I made a video recently on the verbs ser or estar, ser and estar. So I checked it if I were you. But that's it. Basically, that's the difference. So let's move back to the topic. Okay, so let's say that the bola, right here, the ball is a feminine object and it's far from both Lucas and Maria as well. So they would both say, if it's unidentified, how can I ask, what is that? They are both going to use o que é aquilo. It's the same for both of them. Let me just draw it here real quick. So, o que é aquilo comes from her, and it also comes from him, because it's far from both of them. So, right here, let me just go back to the left. Aquilo is that, and under the question mark for unidentified objects. Thank you very much, Anna and Pedro. You're welcome, Shani. I hope it's clear. Right, so if they both want to say that, well, let's say, so since Shani just asked, let's use both examples for the verbs ser and estar here. The ball is flat and the ball is, let's say, black and white. How could we translate both of these sentences into Portuguese? So we're going to use both verbs here. We're going to use ser and estar. If you don't know, you could say that the ball, we don't actually say flat in Portuguese, we say empty as well. So you could use the verb vazia. So empty works. Or rather, I just realized I don't want to say the ball, I want to say that ball. Because I want you guys to use these right here. I want you guys to use this and that. Right, so the first one, that ball is flat. In Portuguese, we translate that into, we're going to use then aquela, because we already know bola is feminine, it finishes in a, so we need to use aquela. So they're both going to say aquela, but flat, aquela bola. And as we know, flat is temporary, so we're going to use the verb está. Está vazia. So that ball is flat. However, Maria will say that the ball is black and white, and this is permanent, it's not temporary, it's the color of the ball. So she would say aquela bola é, not vazia, but preta e branca. No, that's black and white. So aquela bola preta e branca. Matt, very good. Shani, very good. E aquela bola está vazia. Perfect. Anna, very good. So those are the right answers. So Matt, I hope that explains your question. So let me just summarize it very quickly. Isto, este, essa. We use them if the object is next to the speaker. Isso, esse, and essa. We use them if the object is next to the listener. Aquilo, aquele, and aquela. We use them if the object is far from everybody. I hope it's clear. And as I said before, in Brazil, we don't use these guys very much. So let me just use a different pen now, actually. Yeah, let's just leave it at it. Yeah. In Brazil, we don't generally use the ones on the top, just the ones on the bottom. Technical difficulties to move an arrow. Okay, let's move the rest then. So these are important, very important. These ones, not so much. And aquilo, aquele, aquela, of course, if it's far from everybody. Está claro, obrigada. Perfect. Very good. So if any of you guys have any questions during the lesson, you guys can just let me know when we're going to answer, because we have a list of questions, but if you have any extra questions related or not, we can just answer those. Otherwise, we're just going to clean the board and talk about the second question. So someone asked me on Instagram how to use the preposition em. So she asked me about na or no or em. No questions, okay. So I'm just going to clear the board right now. Let's clear everything. All right, let's clear this lady out of here too. Okay. So the next question was about the preposition em in Portuguese. So it's quite simple. The preposition em means, and this is something that we Brazilians or foreigners in general, when we learn English as a second language, we generally get confused, because in English you have three prepositions. You have in, on, and at. And it's very difficult for English learners to actually use them correctly. I was going to ask exactly that question. Really good. Then You got here at the right moment. Lids, food, and rose. Yeah, at the right moment. But yeah, as I was saying, in English you have in, on, at. But in Portuguese, they are all condensed in one preposition. In Portuguese, we just use em. So if I say that the ball is in the box, this in Portuguese will be em. If I say the book is on the table, this on is going to be em again. And if I say I'm at the office, they're going to be at is going to be em again. So we don't need to worry about these guys. It's only em in Portuguese. So before we talk about the contractions, we need to go back to the concept that, and it's one of the most fundamental concepts in Portuguese. Everything has a gender, or mostly everything has a gender. So we need to go about the concept of genders again for objects. So for objects, right, we need to remember that generally, if they are ended in o, they are masculine. If they're ended in a, they are generally, not always, there are always exceptions, feminine. Feminine. Okay. With that being said, let's go back to our examples we use as well. So copo and bola. This one finishes in o, it's masculine, so the article is o copo. O copo, as we already know, it means the cup. Bola ends in a, therefore it's feminine. So a bola means the ball. Now let's go back to the contractions, to aim and contractions. Let's take as an example, I don't like any of these sentences, let me use something else. The water is in the cup. Something else. The ball is in the garden. A garden, let's say garage. I want to use a feminine word. So can you guys translate these sentences? Let me give you some words. Agua and copo for the first sentence, and bola, garagem for the second sentence. By the way, garagem is also feminine. It's a garagem. It doesn't finish in a, but it's feminine. Let's see if you guys can nail it. A água está no copo. Sim. So, you guys, Jam and Matt, you guys already used the contractions that we're going to talk about. So they already gave the answers, so let's move on. They said, a água está no copo. So what is no? That's the question that I've been asked on Instagram. What does that mean? Actually, no is a contraction of the preposition em plus, so let's write here em, preposition plus the article o. Let's say article. So em plus o, no. So if we say a água está no copo, can we say a água está em o copo, which is the literal translation? That here we just take em o and we contract them. Actually, no, we cannot. We need to say no copo. It's not like English where you can choose to contract or not. In Portuguese, we actually do. So we say no copo 100% of the times. And the second sentence, a bola está na garagem, like Matt said, it's the same logic. A bola está na garagem. It's the same. If we mix or if we contract the preposition em and the article a, we end up with na. What if I have a plural there? What if I say os copos, which is the cups? So do I use no or do I change something else? If I say the water is in the cups, then I would have to take the same contraction, but instead of using o, the article would be os, as you see here, os copos. We also need to flex the article to plural, and therefore em plus os would be nos. So if I say the water is in the cups, that would be a água está nos copos. Let me just write it here. So água está nos copos. Let me just erase this one because we have to contract. It's not optional. The same for na. If we contract the preposition em and the article a, the article as, we end up with nas. So let's take, for example, a bola. Let's say as bolas, the balls. Then we would contract the article as plus preposition em, and that would be nas. So do we always use contractions? I said that all the objects have genders, so do we always need to use contractions? The answer is no, we don't, not always. I always take, for example, as I said, objects have genders, but let's take here some countries, because there are some countries which do not have genders in Portuguese. Let me take, for example, 3 countries. The first one is Brazil, of course, my country, the country I'm from. The country I live now, Turkey, and Portugal. Yeah, everybody got it right. Nos copos. Okay. So if I take Brazil is a masculine country, Turkey is a feminine country, and Portugal is one of the exceptions, so no genders. So in this case, if I talk about any contractions because Portugal does not have any genders. Let's take for examples. O Pedro. Let's say Pedro está, blah, 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 Brazil. Of course, I want to say Pedro is in Brazil. And then the same example, a Maria está Turquia, and o Lucas e o Carlos estão blah 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 Portugal. So what should I fill these blanks with? Think about the preposition em or the contractions. What should I fill all of them with? All right. O Pedro está no Brasil, Lids, Foods and Roses. Yeah, that's it. Correct. What about the others? No Brasil, everybody got this one right. Perfect. Elif as well. You got it right. So Jem said no, na, and then em. He gave all the answers at the same time. And they're also right. The first one, we would use no Brasil because it's the preposition em. I put it here in brackets, em plus the article o, Brazil. So Turquia would be na because it's a preposition em plus the article a, because as I said, Turkey is a feminine country. And finally, Portugal would be just em, because Portugal doesn't have a gender. So I would say, o Pedro está no Brasil, a Maria está na Turquia, o Lucas e o Carlos estão em Portugal. So that's basically it. Whoever asked this question, I don't know if you're there in the chat, but Lids is there. So if it's clear, let me know. If it's not, let me know, and I can try something else to explain. But that's pretty much it. So if it's clear for everybody, we can move on to the next one. If you guys have any questions, just let me know. Right. So Matt just said aim plus He's also talking about the other article. So since we're here, let's explain it as well. Definite articles and indefinite articles. Okay. So without using technical names, definite articles in English will be the, and in Portuguese, as you already know, we have two, o and a. Indefinite articles in English would be a or an, and in Portuguese that would be and uma. Again, o for masculine objects, also if it's masculine, a if it's feminine, and uma if it's feminine as well. So let's use the same examples we're talking about here. If I say the ball or a ball, the cup or a cup. Jam. Is it right? Israel has no gender, and although Canada ends with a, it's masculine. Yes, that's right. So Israel, as we say Israel in Portuguese, no gender is another one of the exceptions. And Canada, yeah, ends in a, but it's a masculine country. It's actually o Canada. It's not a Canada. Okay, so let's use the articles. The ball, a bola, a ball, uma bola, the cup, o copo, and a cup, copo. So why am I talking about this? Because Matt brought up that we have more contractions. These are the contractions with the definite articles, and we also have contractions with the indefinite articles. So we also need to have aim plus aim plus uma. So like he said, aim plus is num, aim plus uma is numa. And although these four, let's say here, no, na, nos, nas, they are mandatory, right? So these ones are mandatory, these ones are not. It's kind of your choice. So of course, when you're speaking fast, when you're talking to, I don't know, a friend with a regular conversation, then yes, we just use num and numa. However, it's not mandatory, especially if you're writing something more high level, like academic level. We use aim, so we don't generally contract those. Yeah, so let's talk about examples now. If I say that my book, the book, I say this book is, or that book works better here. That book is on one of the shelves. Or I can say is on a shelf. Better. Now it's a shelf, it's not a specific shelf. The word for shelf in Brazilian Portuguese is prateleira or prateleira, depends on your accent there. If I say the book's on a shelf, so in Portuguese that would be aquele, because livro is masculine, we need to use aquele. So that book is on a shelf. Está. And now it's your choice. You could say em uma prateleira, or you can contract. You can say numa as well. Let's put in brackets here. Numa prateleira. Yeah, that's it. Exactly, Matt. But those are optional, completely optional. Is it clear? Is anybody else with the same question about the preposition aim? I hope it's clear now. Right, so if it's clear, I'm just going to scroll this down a little. And clear, we can just move on. Otherwise, you can just ask me and I can just try something else to explain. So the third thing we're going to cover today, and I think it's the last one because I don't know if we have a lot of time, is question words. So let's say question words in Portuguese. Before we cover those, there's something else we need to talk about. Let's see. Oh, I have a question. So in that case, I have an option, numa or em uma. Now, because if we use, let me write your example here. I have an option. I have an option. So in this sentence you just gave me as an example, we don't have any preposition em, right? So this sentence will be translated as eu tenho uma opção. So there's no preposition em, there's no in, on, at here. That's why we just use uma. The examples I give, num or numa, for contractions. So preposition plus article. In this sentence, we have just the article. But yes, with no and I, it's obligatory. It is. You have to use it. Okay. So as I was saying, before talking about question words, we need to talk about questions in Portuguese. So as you guys already know, we have two types of questions. We have what I'm calling, so they are discursive, but let's call them open questions, which are the questions with the question words. And we have yes and no questions, which of course have yes and no. So let's talk about this one first, yes and no questions, before we talk about the question words. So there's one thing in Portuguese that we need to be very careful with when asking questions, and that's our intonation, so our voice tone. Because, let's say, so this phrase I just wrote here, is it a question or an affirmation? whoever gets this one right, I don't know, I'll buy you a Ferrari if you get this one right. My point is, and before you answer, my point is that you can't know if this is a question or not without seeing or without hearing it. Here, I didn't put any periods or any question marks on purpose because this way we cannot know if this is a question. So if you say it in English, are you tired? This is a question. You are tired. This is an affirmation. So you can know even without seeing any punctuation. But in Portuguese, that's impossible because this sentence can be either a question or an affirmation. Well, Matt said affirmation has no question mark, but doesn't have a period either. So I can't know. That's my point. So if I use a period, full stop, then that means, of course, você está cansado. If I say the same sentence, você está cansado, but this time with a question mark, then oops, it's supposed to be English. So you're tired. This is a question. Are you tired? Right? So of course, if you're reading, you can see the punctuation, you can see the question mark or the period. But if you're not reading, if you're listening to someone, you have to be, or actually not when you're listening, when you're speaking, you have to be very careful with the intonation. Because this is the only way that people can know. Of course, there is also context, but forget context. It's the only way that people can know whether you're asking a question or just using an affirmation. So, the first one, I'm just going to say it and you guys can repeat it back there. It's not a question, it's an affirmation. I'm saying you're tired. Você está cansado. As you see, no question intonation, it's direct, not a question. The second one is a question, are you tired? Você está cansado? As you see, my intonation changed. So, the first one, let me read again. Você está cansado. You're tired. Você está cansado? Are you tired? So, the intonation is very, very important when you ask these kind of Portuguese. And for all questions, questions with do, questions with can, questions with any verb, that's the same. So the affirmation and the question are exactly the same, but with only different punctuation, different intonation then. Okay? And with that being said, we can move on to the question words. So the first pair of question words I would like to talk about, actually a trio. O que, qual, and qual é. What do they mean? Quite simple. O que means what, qual means which. How about the other one? How about qual é? What does that mean? Right, so I'm going to answer and I'll see, because there's a delay. I want to see if you guys answer it right. So, o que, qual, but if I say qual é, it doesn't mean which is. Well, it does, but it also means what is. What do you mean? You just said what is o que, now it's qual. Let me explain. Let's talk about o que first. O que is the same case as we saw before, the isto or isso or aquilo. So it's the question mark. What does it mean? It means it's an unidentified object. So again, I'm going to take the phone let's say, imagine I have no idea what this is. So I'm going to ask, what is this? Right here, my hand. O que é isto? Or isto, as I said before. We Brazilians don't use isto. But since this is a lesson, let's go in a lesson style, in a lesson fashion. O que é isto? Because I have no idea what it is. So this question translates into what is it, or what is this? However, if I want to say what is your name, it's another story, because of course, even though I don't know your name, so it would be in theory unidentified, I already know that we're talking about names and I know what a name is. For this reason, I'm not going to use o que, I'm going to use the other one. I'm going to use qual é. So the question would be, qual é o seu nome? What is your name? So what's your name? I forgot the question mark here. So that's the difference. And this is something that my students struggle to understand a little at the beginning, because they ask me, why do we use what is, and in Portuguese we use qual é. That's the reason. O que é is for unidentified objects, whereas qual é is for identified objects. That's the difference. And the other one, qual, of course, is which. So if I want to say, qual cor você prefere? Vermelho ou azul? So as you see, I give you choices. My question, which color do you prefer? Red or blue? So we use qual. Notice that we just use qual. We do not use any verbs. We don't use qual é. Only qual. Then it's which. So in English, which color do you prefer? Red or blue? Blue. So that's a little confusing, and if you understand this, then you can understand everything else. Right. Let's take a look. The next question word, quem. This one means who. And with this, I would like to talk about something else, talk about prepositions. So if I want to ask, let's say, questions with prepositions, let me explain. Since we're talking about quem, we need to talk about prepositions. For example, who are you with? Who are you with? So if we translate this word by word, that would be quem. So quem está você com? Or let's say quem você está com. So this preposition, as you see, in English we use them at the end of the question, who are you with? However, in Portuguese we use those at the very beginning of the questions. So the preposition would come right here. So I would say, com quem você está, for every preposition. And why am I talking about this? Because there is one specific preposition that's very important as well. The question is de quem. The preposition de plus the question word quem. Why o que has o? Can I say a que, or can I only say que? So in Spanish you would say que, right? With this accent that I can see. Yeah. So the accent you're using right now is the acute accent, so acento agudo. But we need the other one. We need the circumflex accent, the one that looks like a little hat. And yes, we need to use o que, but let's say in more informal conversations, you can say que. Especially if you talk fast, some regions in Brazil, people would use just que without o, but never a que. It's always o que. Yep. So the question word de quem actually means whose. So we're talking about possessions. If you already know, with the preposition de is used to talk about possessions. So we don't have the structure like you have apostrophe s in English. No, we just use the preposition de. So let me just ask a different question here. Question: whose is that pen? We already know how to ask this question. I'll give you guys a minute to think about it, then I'm going to answer. Whose is that pen? Remember, that is far from everybody. And pen, caneta, is feminine. So the question in Portuguese is, of course, we're going to use de quem é aquela caneta. Right? And of course, for the answer, we're going to use the same preposition, and this is a little trick for you. If you use the preposition for the question, you have to use it for the answer, and vice versa. If you use it for the answer, you need to use it for the question as well. Right, Matt said de quem é aquela caneta is the same. Pretty good, pretty good. So let's say the answer, that pen is Pedro. So aquela caneta é do Pedro. So do is the same thing as no. If you remember, no is a contraction, but do is also a contraction. So do is the preposition de plus the article o. So aquela caneta é do Pedro, so de o Pedro. And as I said before, we have the preposition here in the answer, so we need to use the same preposition here in the question. So de and de as well. Alright, so just don't forget that whenever you ask a question with a preposition, you have to put it at the beginning of the question. So let me just erase this for now. Let's say de quem, and yeah, that's it. De quem está aquela caneta? Anna, so we don't, for possession, we need to use the verb ser, not the verb estar. That's why we can't say de quem está aquela caneta. It has to be de quem é aquela caneta. The next question word, or the next pair, let's say onde and aonde. This is something that most Brazilians, not most, I'm not going to be unfair here. Some Brazilians don't know how to use them properly, so they don't know the difference between onde and aonde. So if you listen, or if you learn these words, you'll be able to speak better than some Brazilians. So that's quite achievement. Right, so onde means where, and aonde means, well, aonde means to where. So there's no such thing as to where in English, but this is the best way I can explain. So to where. Examples. Where's the red pen, since we're talking about pens? And where are you going? Yeah, where are you going, let's say. Where's the red pen? Where are you going? So for one of these questions, we need to use onde, and for the other, we need to use aonde. So which is which? I'll give you guys a second to think about it, then I'm going to answer. Just remember that aonde always means movement. And this is something that many Brazilians don't get right. So Matt said, onde está a caneta vermelha? Perfect. The first one, onde está a caneta vermelha? Very good. How about the second question? Aonde você vai? Good, perfect. Aonde você vai? So aonde você vai is a bit more informal. It means the same thing. It means where are you going? But let's say the grammatically correct way to say that would be aonde você está indo. Aonde você vai works as well. Yep, so aonde indicates movement always, whereas onde is just the location. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's make it to 10. I got 3 more. Quando, quanto, and quantos. So, quanto can also be quanta, and quantos can also be quantas. So these are the last 3 we're going to take a look for today, because I think 10 is quite the number. So what do you guys think? This is also something that my students confuse sometimes. They generally confuse quando with a D and quanto with a T. So it's very important to not confuse those. Let's see if someone knows that. All right, so what do you guys think? I'm going to go ahead and answer. Quando means when. Quanto or quanta means how much. So let's capitalize it, how much. And quantos or quantas means how many. So if you don't know the difference between how much and how many, how much is used for uncountable nouns or objects, and how many is used for countable nouns or objects. So quando, when, quanto or quanta, how much, quantos or quantas, how many. Let's talk about some more questions right over here. So when do you go to the gym? Let's say, when do you go to the gym? Another question, how much energy do you generally have at night? And let's say something simple, how many apples do you have in the bag? So let's see if we know how to translate these questions. So quando você vai à academia, Matt? Perfect, very good. So the first one, quando você vai à academia. Very good. So this a with this accent is another contraction that we're not going to cover today. It's just extra info, so you know. Quando você vai à academia, and that's a question, so it needs a question mark. The second one's a bit long, so I don't know if you guys will be able to pull it off. Quanta energia você geralmente tem à noite, Matt? Perfect. There's just one little detail. Energia. So energia is feminine, is a feminine noun. So as I said here, quanto can also be quanta. In this case, we need to use quanta. So, quanta energia você geralmente tem à noite? Right, and it's the same thing with the maçãs. Maçãs is also feminine. So we need to use quantas. As I said, maçãs, feminine. So that would be quantas maçãs você tem na bolsa? Okay, so let's just summarize very quickly. So, o que, what, qual, which, qual é, what is. So the difference between o que and qual é is that for the first one, it's an unidentified object, whereas for the second one is identified. Quem, who, de quem, whose, onde, where, aonde, to where, quando, when, quanto or quanta, how much, quantos or quantas, how many. Cool. Okay, so is it clear about the question words? I don't know. Let me just check who asked this question. I think it was Denise. I'm sorry if I forgot your name. Let me just double check here. That was Denise. I don't know if you're there in the chat, but if you are, there you go, my friend. So, do you guys have any final questions? Otherwise, I'm going to give you some more homework for today. So while you guys think about any questions you may have, let me talk about the homework. So, for today, I would like you guys to, let's say, write 10 is too much, let's say 5 questions with answers. Of course, using those question words, and send them to my email. My email is pedro.learnportuguese@gmail.com. So, very simple. We're going to write 5 questions and answer them, obviously, and send them to my email. I'm going to correct and do some commentary. Actually, 2 people sent me last time. I think it was Matt and Shannon. That's correct. Yeah. So if you guys send me, I'm going to correct and send it back to you. All right. So any final questions before we say goodbye? So in the meantime, if it's the first time here, if you didn't know me yet, so down below you can see of course my YouTube channel where you are right now, and my Instagram account as well. I post generally most stuff related to pronunciation, some idioms here and there, and I also announce any things that I may show up in the like lives, or I don't know, questions and answers, quizzes. I have everything on Instagram, so make sure to check it out as well. Shani Lloyd, thank you. Really enjoyed it and very helpful. Thank you so much, Shani. I appreciate you enjoyed it. Matt, no questions. Another great lesson. Thanks. Thank you, man. Thank you for joining. And yes, I'll be live again. So I'm going to make this a habit. every Monday at 4 p.m. Brazil time. I'll be on YouTube, and I announce on Instagram what I'm going to talk about, if it's going to be a Q&A session, if it's going to be a live lesson like last week. So you guys can follow me there and check it out. All right. So thank you guys very much for joining, and I'll see you again next Monday. Anna said obrigada. Obrigada você, Ana. Thank you, Anna, for staying with us. So yeah, I'll see you guys next Monday. Então, até a próxima segunda-feira, às 4 horas, no horário do Brasil. Tá bom? Beleza. Thanks for your lesson. That was great. Ah, you're so cute. Thank you so much, baby. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm glad you learned something new. Ok? Então, tchau. Até mais, então. Até tchau. Até depois. Tchau, tchau. Até segunda-feira. Tchau, tchau.